Hello, welcome to the Critical Cinema Club. I'm Sean, and I think we need to talk about The Crow, don't we? Obviously, we're going to be going into full spoilers in this video, so please bear that in mind. If you've not watched the film yet, go and watch it, come back after. So I'm not going to bash and demonise this film too much, because I think it did try and do a couple of things there and there that worked okay. We'll break those down, have a quick chat about those, and then we'll talk about the many negatives that there were, and ultimately why this film failed. So first of all, I did go in with an open mind. I wasn't expecting a remake of the original Crow from '94. I really wanted this to do well. So I did go in with an open mind. I really wanted it to do well. It started okay. I mean, the opening scene got the young boy, who we imagine is going to be Eric. He finds a white horse and it's caught in barbed wire. And straight away I'm thinking, okay, great, because that's a callback to the graphic novel. Something similar to that happens in there, and they didn't reference that in the '94 movie. So I thought, oh, so immediately setting it apart from that film, we're doing our own thing. We've referenced the source material, and I thought, okay, let's see what happens. So, okay, I thought, not a bad start. Let's see how it goes. Something else I want to praise in this film is the fact that Shelley is an actual character. So in the '94 version, Shelley was just a memory, really. We saw some flashbacks, and it was Eric's love for her that drove the story forward, and we didn't see that from the other side. So I'm not saying that's a criticism of the older film, not at all. But in this new film, having Shelley be a big part of the film, it made sense. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And the film's developing on. I thought, okay, Shelley's here. Very interesting. So there has been some criticism about how long it takes for the film to really get going, for Eric to sort of become the Crow. I don't mind that so much personally, because I see what they were going for, to build a better foundation so that we care more about them when the murders do happen. So that does make sense to me, and I enjoyed the visual of them being in rehab and the jumpsuits and things. I thought that looked all right. I thought that was quite cool. Yeah, the film takes its time to get going, but that's okay. I'm a patient person anyway, so I didn't mind. So it did try to create this bond on camera, I guess, to make us care more for these two characters. I think it failed in that. I feel like it was all a bit wooden, and I didn't feel the chemistry for whatever reason. It didn't really work for me. I think the idea was there. I think somewhere in the execution things didn't quite go to plan, and I can't really say I cared all that much. I feel like I cared more about the '94 romance than I did this, despite the fact that Shelley wasn't in it too much. But Brandon Lee was able to carry that on his own, and that worked really well for that film, not so much for this film for whatever reason. Do want to give them some props for introducing a little bit more jeopardy into this film. So in the original, Eric is on his revenge mission, but he's an unstoppable killing machine, basically, isn't he? So they do introduce a little bit of jeopardy at the end of that film, where he loses his powers momentarily and Sarah is kidnapped. So they did do a thing there for that. But in this film, I feel like the stakes are a little bit higher, because there is a chance to save Shelley. You've also got the supernatural element with this villain as well, which we'll come to later. But that sort of made things a little bit more interesting, I thought. And I was interested to see where they were going to go with it. And I also want to give a shout out to the soundtrack. I really enjoyed it. So as we were watching along, me and my dad, there were a couple of songs, especially Gary Newman being there. I thought that was awesome. That was one of the first real Crow moments, where he's walking around with the Crow and that music hits. And I thought that was really cool. And there's some bands on there I'd not heard of before, so I'm checking those out now. So yeah, pretty good. I'll give them a thumbs up for the soundtrack. I enjoyed it. So onto the cons, which do outweigh the positives, unfortunately, for me personally. I thought it was all a bit wooden. Bill Skarsgård surprised me. I wasn't feeling it from him. I don't know if it's the script or the direction, but I expected a bit more, if I'm honest, and I wasn't really feeling it. Not in the same way I felt with Brandon. It's almost impossible not to compare the two, isn't it? I think the main reason for that, they've made a rod for their own back, and I think this is ultimately one of the biggest failures of the film, is when you are going to do a reimagining or retelling or whatever it is they want to do, if you include those same two characters, Eric and Shelley, if you change everything else, it don't matter. You're always going to be drawn back to that original. And that was always setting themselves up for a fall there, because you're sort of asking yourself to be compared to one of the better films that was released in the 90s. It was a fantastic movie. And I understand why they did it, because that's a good way to draw people in. Eric and Shelley, I get it. But by that same token, I do feel the film might have been a bit better received if they were brand new characters. If his name was Pete and she was Jane, would people have minded so much? I don't know. Probably would still be bombing at the box office, I suspect. But some of the online reaction to the film has been crazy. I mean, really surprising to me, because it's not a great film. I don't think it is. It certainly failed at the box office, it seems. And but is it a terrible film? No, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's not good. I would probably put it somewhere in the 5 to 6 range out of 10, probably. That's what I would expect it to be on IMDb. It was 4 something when I last looked. I don't think it deserves to be in the 4s. I think that's harsh, personally. Because in terms of production value and effects, and I mean, some of the effects were not amazing, but I think there was enough there to justify it being an okay film. That's probably what I would give it, an okay. It's like a C minus, like a just a pass. Although I think they've got a completely different marking system these days, so that'll be really outdated for a lot of people watching this. But people of my age will understand what I'm saying with that. And as I'm watching it, it feels like there's bursts of energy there where I'm thinking, okay, it's finally going to kick in, like the Gary Newman bit where he's walking. I thought, yes, okay. And it did end up in an action sequence, but it just didn't quite grab me in that moment. And there was a few more bits here and there. And it threatened to get going a few times. It never really, this didn't feel like it clicked for me. I mean, something I've noticed as I'm watching the film is in the first film, the Crow in itself is a character. So you can see that he has a relationship with Eric Draven in that film, and he's almost like a bro, he's looking out for him and warning him. I feel like they've got a symbiotic relationship almost. In this film, I feel like his Crow doesn't even acknowledge him once. I mean, I was looking out for it because I noticed early on it never sat on his shoulder, never interacted with this Eric. Yeah, it was really weird because I didn't get that sort of bond that I felt like the man and the Crow had in the first film. So that was a strange choice. I feel like the Crow in itself was really detached from the story, almost like it wasn't there. You could have taken the Crow out of this film and just had him have a supernatural power. You wouldn't even know the difference if the Crow wasn't there, is what I'm saying. Whereas in the first film, I feel like it had much more of a presence. So I don't know what went on there. That's not the choice I would have made. Danny Houston being there as the villain, I'm so sick of seeing this guy playing the same role in everything he's in. He was Stryker in X-Men Wolverine, and I feel like I've seen him around in other roles, and he's always just big bad, and I don't feel it at all. Never have done with him. It's a disappointing to see him in there. And he's got this supernatural ability, or he's made this deal with the devil, and I thought, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Never seen anything like that in a Crow film before. Ultimately, it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't have any payoff, I don't think, really. I think a better idea, if I'd have written this film, I would have made it so perhaps, in my version, perhaps Danny Houston's character was a Crow as well, and he didn't give up his power, and once he'd got justice, he retained the power and kept going, and he needs to be brought back to justice himself. That straight away, that's already a massive improvement. If I say so myself, obviously. I mean, I'm no Hollywood writer, but it's a supernatural element that would make sense in the context of the film. Having this outside influence here, because the devil's mentioned and this, that, and the other, it never goes anywhere. And it's just weird. It's just a weird thing to insert in. It feels forced. But if they'd have done something like what I've just suggested, I could have seen that working a lot better. So yeah, I mean, I'm watching this film in the cinema and I'm just sort of scratching my chin all the way through, just analyse it, thinking, just wondering why they made some of these decisions. And yeah, and just the biggest WTF moment of the whole film is that, why was the bathtub full? I mean, I was really pleased when I came out and I seen loads of other people had noticed it as well, and lots of questions being asked. But there's that scene where Eric gets pushed into the bathroom, stabbed or whatever, and shot, and he falls in the bathtub and it's full. What's it doing? What's going on? Just some really wonky decisions made by characters and things. The whole things didn't flow right because I'm being taken out of the film all the time. Like he's there to get some revenge, but he stops to give himself a quick tattoo first. This is like Tattoo the movie or something. It was just, man, I don't know. It's such a shame because I feel like they had some elements there that would have worked a little bit better. It's the execution, I think, honestly, because Bill Skarsgård is a good actor. I was excited to see him in it, but some of the direction they took, I mean, I got a similar vibe from Suicide Squad where Joker had all these tattoos and just, you could tell already he was in trouble. And I got this same feeling when I saw Bill as the Crow and he'd got short hair and the tattoos. And I get it to some extent because they're appealing to this generation. There are blokes out there that look like that, and yeah, I get it. I get what they were going for. I think it just fell on its arse, to be honest, if I'm going to sum it up. It just didn't mesh together. It feels like there was some ideas in there, and I can see him spitballing it, and what came out the other end just didn't quite work. And it's bombed at the box office as well, isn't it? Which is a shame, because I would like to see someone else have a crack at doing a Crow film and doing it differently, do it in a different way. And one more thing, I'm sorry, I actually finished recording and I've come downstairs, but I actually had one more thing to say that I wanted to add in as a con. In my Throwback Thursday for the Crow film, the first one, I mentioned how there was no need to have a skull cowboy type character to explain the plot. There was no need for exposition because of how they wrote that film was so tight, so perfect. In this film, you have got that guy and he's on the train tracks in between worlds, and they never went full skull cowboy with it, but didn't really explain who he was either. So it was a bit of something and a bit of nothing, and it worked better in the first film. I mean, if they did it so well in that first film, you'd have thought they'd learnt that lesson for this one. But it's just a point I wanted to make quickly, and I forgot to do it upstairs when I was recording this earlier. Yeah, I didn't like mixed feelings on it, but there you go. But what a shame! What a shame! They've messed it up. I'm gonna say personally, somewhere between 5.5 and 6 out of 10. Like I say, not great, not good even, but not terrible. Certainly not. I mean, some of the online reactions have been out there for me. I may get comments on this video where people are going to absolutely slate it, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I don't think it's terrible. In and of itself, it's not a terrible movie. It's just not as good as it could have been. So with that in mind, I would invite you to share your comments with us down below. What did you think? Did you think it was okay? Do you feel like it's been unfairly ripped to pieces online, or do you think it gets everything it deserves? Do you feel like this was an absolute abject failure and you want to take me to task and say, absolutely, you know what, Sean, you're wrong, it's just the worst movie I've ever seen? Which I have seen people online saying. I don't think it's the worst film I've ever seen, but it's certainly far from being one of the best. It was just mid, is all I can say. It was just a very mid film. Shame. But yeah, please like, subscribe, comment, let us know your thoughts. See you on the next video.